preserving our planet. This talk will be given by Dr. or Saranarat Kanjanavanit, who is an ecologist and is currently running a personal conservation project in the north of Thailand. Also joining Dr. Oi is Siyarifa Nadira, who is a botanical illustrator and textile designer based in Malaysia. She is also the author of Recalling Forgotten Tastes, which is a book of botanical illustrations. The two will share notes on how we can all make a difference with personal actions on the environment, both big or small. They will be accompanied by Oraya Suthabut, which is the co-founder of the Big Trees Foundation to promote the conservation of urban trees. And she also helps look after trees at the Nelson Hayes Library.
Hello, welcome to this afternoon's talk. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll just get right to it. I'll introduce the topic and then our speakers, and then let them enthrall you with their work and book. Sorry, I need my glasses. So these are the two books that we will be talking about today. I'll just hold them up together. Or you can just hold. Oh yeah, you have yeah. And by the way, they're both on sale at this festival, so you can go and get a copy. Although this one is coming out later in English, the Homo Gaia book by Dr. Oi. It's a work in progress, right? Yes. Okay. So we, oops. So today we're together to be talking about on Earth field notes from the people preserving our planet. My name is Oraya Suthabut and I'll be moderating. And I would like to introduce the two writers to begin with. So next to me is Dr. Oi or Saranarat Kanjanavanit. She's an ecologist, a former chairperson of the Green World Foundation, an author of the book Homo Gaia, which was only published last year and very, very popular in Thailand, and that's why the English is coming out soon. She has written many citizen science guidebooks, and this is something that she pioneered in Thailand over 20 years ago, and along with various environmental detective programs for children, teaching them how to explore and care for the living world around them. And currently she has a very beautiful project in Chiang Dao in Chiang Mai, where she is doing a lot of work rewilding the area, including growing rice and soybeans and all that. She actually has workshops happening next year there as well. So there's Dr. Oi. Please give your hand to her. And then the other writer, we have Sharifa Nadira. She is a visual artist, textile designer based in Malaysia. And her book, Recalling Forgotten Tastes, a book of botanical illustrations, talks about edible plants, food from the perspective of indigenous communities in Peninsula Malaysia, like in Selangor and Pahang. She experiments in printmaking, watercolor, digital art, and she likes to document her experience and her knowledge gained from the indigenous in sketchbooks. And she has another work coming out, an exhibition called Measures of Seeds, right?
Already come out last year.
Oh.
So yeah, that was the exhibition last year, which was Measure of Seeds. Yeah, that was just me venturing into monocrop plantations and seed monopoly and things like that. Yeah.
Right, I think interesting.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting to know that she grows rice now. So I'll be speaking to you.
So from reading both books, I instantly feel that there is something strongly in common between the two books, and which is that both authors talk about sort of bringing to life again our senses. You might think, we already have our five senses, right? The taste, the smell, the sight, or the touch. But according to these books, and I'm so excited to be trying it out myself, when you try and open up, sort of free yourself from what you're used to, from your work, from, focusing on yourself, then you begin to see the world, especially nature, and how one is connected to nature. You would see it differently. And according to Dr. Oy, that connection somehow was there, but we have forgotten about it, or we have, from our lives, from the constant, gradual moving away from a natural setting, we forget, that there is that connection. So I think I will start by asking P.Oi to sort of maybe continue what I was just talking about in your book, because you were talking about how when you were growing up, right, playground is outside, right, like under trees, and then you call yourself the last child in the woods, right?
Yeah, many people probably or read the book by Richard Louv, The Last Child in the Woods, and about people like my generation. Say in Thailand, I would be last child in the woods generation, basically the last generation of urban people who actually grew up with easy access to the wild, to wilderness. So we played about by these lotus swamp, or canals, and on the roadside canals and rice field and all that, and have snakes in the house all the time, so it was a normal thing. But then I think the world, as we become more and more disconnected through so-called development, through all kinds of, technology and the change of culture, but our body is still the same body, like 200,000 years ago, if we only counting Homo sapiens, but 7 million years ago we counted our shared ancestor with the chimpanzee, and so we suffer mentally as well as physically, because when we become so disconnected from nature. Yeah. So, but basically the book was written because I was triggered by, not quite triggered, it was more like a slow development, but basically it's, let me put it this way, is that what really inspired me is the wonder of nature as well as the destruction of nature. And I tried all this as conservationists. We try to speak the language of science, speak the language of economics, of finance, of social justice, all kinds of health, human benefit stuff, And, but it just got to the point when, which I wrote in the book, the case of Sayaburi Dam that killed the Mekong, was like cutting the throat of Mekong ecology. We lost that fight, even though we had the best information ever. It's like climate change now, And we had for once, we actually have all kind of ecological information, sedimentation, all the, biodiversity and finance, investment risk, macroeconomics. We have everything, all kinds of information and facts. But we still could not stop it. Because in the end, it was like we tried to speak, it's like it's the decision of the 0.1% on the top of the pyramid, who the people who's going to make the decision, who's all powerful. And so I just felt that it's about time that I tried to learn everyone else's languages, because we feel that conservationists, you have to appeal to, you can't talk about your animals and plants, you have to talk about money and health and, all the human-centered stuff. And fine, I tried to talk and I had fun, learning about economies and all that. But after Sayaburi said, I'm going to speak my own language now, too. Have to learn my language now if they're going to speak to me. So they won't speak to me anymore. No, basically. So I just think, well,
okay.
why not?
Nicer people to talk to.
Yeah. So basically, it's a language not of science. I've written a lot on science, like with the wonder and amazing adaptation and all that, from the perspective of plant or animal. But this is really language of nature connection, not just of science, but how you feel and or phenomenal or experience that happened to you personally. And so I decided it's very difficult for a scientist or someone who's perceived or needed to maintain the image of a scientist for respect. It's quite difficult to, I'm going to talk about something that sounds supernatural or spiritual and might be to be perceived as weird, But so that's what the book is about. It's about nature connection of basically Homo Gaia means. It's the next step of evolution of development from Homo sapiens. So Homo Gaia, as the name suggests, that we're going to be human, a race of human who can be a member of the global community, of Gaia community, of the Earth community, basically. So it's about connection at many different levels and how you can start. And
yes.
As you just using, actually you have all potential in yourself to communicate with other species. Actually, I did go as far as interspecies communication, which is really weird as a scientist, but that goes, be brave. And and we can be connected in many different levels. And that's when you feel really fulfilled and when you're reconnected again.
Yes, so from the book's description or subtitle, I translated it, my version, as a reviving cross-species connection, which us humans were once part of. And in the book, P.I. talks about the honey hunters, right, in Mozambique, who work with birds. They don't actually, speak bird language, but they communicate, and somehow together they find like bees' nests, right, with the help of the birds. And then you also have the Navajo Indians, right, who can sort of sense things that normally you don't feel them at all. So I feel this is universal, right? I mean, you have similar experience yourself to you, if you don't mind sharing some of that.
Actually, there's many levels of communication. Usually learn each other's language, the bird and the human. In Africa, this also actually made the sound that they understood. They have their own languages. But mainly, when you come interspecies communication is really through the mind, through telepathy. And we all have that ability. And it's not that difficult as you think. it can, yeah, we can all learn and we can all practice. And people will find that with the right, certain training, you find that you can do it much faster than, you surprise it yourself, because it's our innate ingrained ability to have this ability.
But of course, you can try it before you believe it, right? Or you believe that you have those skills. We're not saying this is something that everyone has to go out and do it, and then if you don't achieve it, then you're not human. But this is her perspective, which I find very fascinating. Did you want to say something else?
That's okay. There's because it's going to be too lengthy to tell the stories about messages that But basically, what I'm trying to do is that I try to just open up a conversation, that we can when we all have experiences. It's not just about interspecies communication when you can actually communicate and changing messages. It might sound too far, but there's different level of connection, and once you basically. I'm asking people to remember, the time, like I'm sure you all have a time when you think of a moment when you feel really complete at one with nature, where was it? It might be this one really dark night and you got up in the middle of the night and you came out and there was, starlit night, it was full of many, many stars, maybe Milky Ways, and how did you feel that, and just remember that. How just remembering take you to a certain state of mind, of being, and feeling so small in a big universe, but your awareness was so expansive. The physical self is small, but the awareness so expansive, and you felt no need of fame or riches or anything, So that kind of state of mind, that emptiness, but at the same time so expansive influence, you can recall it anytime with practice, that connection to be part. As I'm not communicating well. I'm just saying, as I said earlier, that I think it's the sickness of this age today it comes from disconnection of all sorts. Disconnection from between humans, but also disconnection from nature, from other species who share the world with us, who's really our friends, or predators, whatever, But, we have, and I think it brought about depression, it brought about a lot of problems in the society. And, but when we find that connection, find that connection again, I think that's why people wanted to be, it's our nature to expand ourselves. So, but we might go about it by, we think that we have to get more money, we think we have to get more famous, whatever, and so you're striving in a worldly terms, and it's still not fulfilled, and there's more and more conflict. But it was all perfectly natural, I mean, don't have to feel, oh, why was I so greedy and all that? Because that's your normal self, you just try to expand in the wrong. I mean,
right.
Because it's our nature to be expansive, but when you when your identity is more inclusive, it's not about I and other things, or me, Thai national, me, Palestine, you're Israel, and you're more inclusive, more expansive, then you see yourself in the plant you eat, and etc.
And it's
healing.
It's
It
universal
to,
also, right?
Yeah, it's totally.
Yeah. So, and I think this is something that Sharifa can definitely relate to, right?
About food.
Yeah, we're talking about the senses, and of course it includes the tasting of the edible plants and other kinds of food. I mean, Sharifa's book title is Recalling Forgotten Taste of Illustrated Edible Plants, Food, and Memories. And I'm sure you share the similar experiences when you go into the forest, right? And then with the indigenous people who introduce you to the plants and their cuisine. So maybe you can continue the thread from Dr. Oi, from your experience.
Sure. Yeah, I really relate to that sense of, nature as being expensive. And I mean, talking from the perspective of the work that I do, I didn't grow up like how you did, like, in the wild, in nature. More of a city girl. But
I'm old.
as I grew up, that curiosity to learn about the untapped knowledge on our rich biodiversity and our forests is just it really drives me to do what I do now. And I was really fortunate enough to make friends with the indigenous communities themselves, and one of them being a friend of mine, Shak Koyo. So he's an artist. He brought me to his village in
Where is this in Malaysia?
in Selangor, and so it's called Kuala Forest Reserve. So this place, it's very dense with developments, but there's one patch of forest reserve in the middle of this big city. Yeah, but during the pandemic, okay, so basically the forest reserve, my friend who is from one of the villages there, who is a Temuan community there. So they really depend on the forest. So during the pandemic, the state government tried to de-gazette the forest reserve for a mixed development. Yeah, so it was horrible, and everyone just grouped together and campaigned for a protest against this. And thankfully, they revoked the de-gazettement. So with the voice of the people from the indigenous communities themselves, it's really empowering to see. And
That's how you became
yeah,
involved with this
yeah,
community.
Yeah, and then I spoke to the family, and they brought me into the forest to just learn about all the trees that were there. And these are really ancient trees. It's a 7,000-year-old forest, and they want to de-gazette it. It's really, Malaysia is funny in
So
that
what
term.
do you do? I mean, because her book is full of sketches. So when
Yeah.
you go, you just go and like pick up a leaf
Yes.
and then taste it, and then you walk some more, and then you do the sketches. Like, how do you manage your, or what is a typical day or walk that you do in the forest?
We would definitely start early in the morning to capture all the plants there, and we would start. So basically, it's a mix of the Temuan community being workers at the palm oil plantation, which is really heavily. It covers most of the landscape in Malaysia, but they also really depend on the forest reserve now for food, for medicine. So these are all ecological knowledge that are slowly disappearing. And with the rampant development that we have now, it's going into extinction. So before that, I really wanted to approach them and just follow them into the forest, as easy as like going hiking with them, and they would just simply pluck this plant and just have me to taste it, and different types of fruits. They really know which seasons to look for fruiting trees, and then all those sorts of things that really come in handy if in how do I say, like, if we go into a food crisis one day, then how do we go about that if we don't have all this knowledge? And for myself, I feel like actually the indigenous communities in Malaysia, even though they are only less than 1% of the population, but they are still very much heavily protecting the forest because they rely on it. So they have this balance that they have to achieve while gathering food, and yeah.
You said in your book that the indigenous like elderly people, right, would teach the young people that whatever you can take from the forest, right? You forage, you find food, but then don't take everything, right?
Yeah.
Leave some of it so that it could regrow, right? Which is like so different from what we do today, right? Today we
Yes.
talk about what's the productivity per, right, one
It's
piece
all
of
about,
land, and like
yeah,
how do you
profit.
increase it? And a lot of times you just plant the same plants, right, in one very big plot, yeah. But then from the indigenous perspective, it's like whatever grows, right, in the backyard or in the forest near where they live, they just
They have to
right,
leave
pick
some.
and choose.
Yeah,
So I mean, what's their? Is it like season based or depending on their needs? Like, did you like get down to how they pick and choose what to forage or to to collect each time that they go in?
Well, it depends on. I mean, as the forest has its own seasons, like Malaysia with its rainy season, the hot season. So they really have to. I mean, it's rapidly changing. Even the fruiting trees that used to fruit at a certain time, it's not fruiting at that time anymore because of the climate change and all that. So it's ever changing, and they are resilient, and they adapt to it. And for example, because I see that the orang asli, they used to pluck petai. If you know, petai is a bitter bean, yeah,
What is
stinky
it?
bean.
Oh,
Sator?
sator. Yeah, we call it sator.
In Thai. Ah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, a really stinky bean.
Who is it
Yeah.
that figured this out?
Thank
Very
you.
good. Very smelly. If you have had these
Yeah.
green beans you have
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
chili paste.
Yeah, they're really experts in gathering those because it's a really
But
tall
yeah, I mean,
tree.
these tall trees, they're really tall.
Really tall. Yeah.
But then, yeah, you'd be very stupid if you just cut down the tree so that it's
Yes.
easy to get the star, right? But then next time, the tree is not there
Yeah,
anymore. So how do they collect the star in the
they
Malaysian
climb.
forest? They climb.
Yes, they're really
Yeah,
expert
I thought so
climbers,
too.
and women, men, they all climb.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really expert climbers, and they really know what to look for in the forest. And they also respect, like for example, the Samai community in Pahang, they practice hill paddy farming. So they
What farming again? Sorry.
hill paddy farming, paddy.
Paddy. I
Yeah,
see. Yeah.
rice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before they slash a patch of forest for the paddy farming, they will never kill any animal. Yeah, so that's their concept of respecting nature, and also they're very spiritual. In terms of agriculture and food production, they really back to dreams. They really rely on dreams, and if they dream a bad dream before slashing a forest, like let's say an image of a fire, they would not proceed with such with the slash and burn patch of the forest. Yeah, so I really admire their respect for nature and just understanding the rhythm of the forest. Yeah, and it's really inspiring
That's
to see.
wonderful. Well, just now outside we were talking as we were preparing for this talk. I was talking about the Thai Yai community, right? That you work with in Chiang Dao, in Chiang Mai, and I thought maybe something about their farming practices that you can share. That maybe. Okay. Anyway, so okay, I'll move into another thing that I wanted to ask P.I. about, which is the rewilding, what do you call it, project, right? We can say, because when we are in an urban area, it's probably difficult to imagine what it's like for an area in a city to become rewilded. But P.I. is starting to do that, right, in Chiang Dao, in Chiang Mai, and I think that's probably a very appropriate place to be connected with nature again.
Take it back a few steps, since because we all know that we are in. It's not just climate change; it's triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss. We're in the sixth extinction, and all kinds of pollutions. And it might seem really overwhelming, and where you start to solve the problem, you have to fix so many things, But the good news is that because it all stem from, all this crisis stem from the same cause, that is the destruction of nature. So the solution is stop destroying nature and let it recover, So one of the thing we need to do is we talk about rewilding a lot. It's spelled R-E and wild, W-I-L-D. Basically, it's not like a normal gardening, but let the nature come back. But sometimes you might have to help it by like introducing the wolf in Yellowstone Park, because it was hunted, to extinction for 60 years, but once got reintroduced. And then everything else, the nature shaped themselves, because they got the key player, which is the wolf in, and who eat and made sure that the elk population will start to behaving themselves, and plants started to grow, and other species coming back, and the river that was eroding everywhere started to shape and meander again and take course, So it was like just 13 wolves and the whole forest was the ecosystem coming back. So basically that's the concept of rewilding, that we try to bring back the ecological functions, because that's the jobs of the biodiversity lives, other lives, that lives and share the planet. And so it's very different from a lot of Help Nature CSR program.
All the reforestation
that
projects,
that the people think themselves, and try to throw nature and try to ended up actually destroying even more, destroying particularly the stream. And if I go on, I can go forever. But basically, so the revise that you let you might help introduce back certain elements to help to allow nature to revive, to take to bring back
to
ecological function.
So
to do that, you can do at many levels. So basically, what we have to do is stop all the destruction, nature destruction, and start reviving. So we have to recover nature everywhere. It's not just, you can't just, national parks are great, but they are fragmented, and it's not enough to sustain the ecological function of the world. And therefore, you have to recover nature everywhere, including urban,
your own home.
Your own home, And there's a lot you can do in city, and in your own garden. If you only have a condo, an apartment, how about your windowsills, your balcony? Like in the States, there's a great rewilding program, of help the monarch butterflies, which need to migrate a long way, from Mexico all the way to North America, and it takes 4 generations to travel that far, and so they need to be fed on. They need the milkweed, and so this program just even school kids, you can have your little garden of milkweeds. You're helping to restore biodiversity, so do that bit that you can. Now, so a lot that we can do in the urban, but the really important thing for me is, or that it's a challenge, big challenge is the พื้นที่เกษตร land. That's also need rewinding. Of course, we're talking about now the new sexy term is regenerative agriculture, basically the organic or natural agriculture, but also which needs a certain landscape design. Like, for instance, if you have near water sources, you allow the water edges to rewind, to have natural vegetation.
Not have like concrete, right?
No
Slabs.
concrete, which
Yeah,
destroy
along
all the
waterways.
homes. Yeah,
Big
And
problem now
Big
here.
problem now. Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't look. They don't have to be trees. Sometimes they're not trees. It's just reed beds.
Or things that we
But-
thought were weeds, right?
Yeah,
are
and
actually
which,
edible
of
and
course,
good for the
People
ecosystem.
still think that smelly swamp or rok. We think that it's rok. I can't think of English. Rok. Untidy,
Untidy. Messy.
untidy, probably full of snakes, that kind of thing. Unkempt, and and these water edges vegetation, wild vegetation, they're really important. Is the key because it's the buffer between land and water, and go down to the sea. It would help a lot to stop the problem, but actually nitrogen cycle is even worse than carbon at the moment, and it can provide also the wildlife corridor that would then link all these fragmented national parks down to the urbans. That's my plan, but I probably die before that. I probably
I
get
hope-
to live
I
to
hope
see
not.
it, because now in Thailand we have this new law that's going to tax
land tax, the land tax law, you might have heard.
land that looks wide.
Yeah, I mean this
So we actually going opposite of this, climate change, and all this countdown. Yeah, Thailand going opposite. We actually accelerate destruction.
I mean,
instead of having coming
yeah.
up with laws that provide incentives. I read what I want to see now. I'm interested in for the food production land because it's a huge problem. I think farmers need to be recognized not just as food provider, but also as land manager, as land stewardship. Because if they do it badly, we all suffer. We get PM, breathe in PM 2.5. But if we do well, they don't get paid at all. And because they can't just try to get the maximum yield, then they would have to. They're going to try to go for every single bit inches of land. So
Right.
you have
Yeah.
to provide them with income.
So I mean,
Society needs right
for those of
income.
you who
Yeah.
have been in Bangkok, you might have seen various plots across the city where you only find rows of banana trees or like lime and even coconut trees, and then all monoculture, and that's because this new this silly new land tax law says that if it's an abandoned land, then you will pay higher taxes, including the large trees. So a lot of people have just bulldozed their lands and then put in these rows of banana trees, and that's the opposite of what Yoy is talking about. I'm wondering if in Malaysia, do you have this kind of legalized destruction of natural environment, or something else that like worries you as you try to communicate about indigenous knowledge and
I mean, we destroy everything. But yeah, I guess
think we'll have to have a competition between Malaysia and Thailand. Yeah, what's your view on how the way things are and like
I mean, urban-wise,
What we can do?
we chop down every tree we can see that goes in the way of a certain development or a high-rise building or even a township. Yeah, so like modern townships are really thriving in Malaysia now, and they're really attracting the younger generation. But before, they would probably displaced certain communities. Like for example, the Temuan community in Selangor were displaced from the current airport that we have now.
Airport.
Yeah, they were there before. So they were displaced to near to the forest reserve, and that's quite a common practice in Malaysia. Whenever they want to clear a land to do something,
They don't
don't
keep
consider
any trees.
trees. If they don't consider the people, what more the trees, right? Yeah. So I guess I'm not so sure about the technical part in the urban cities, but from the community level, that's what I can see and observe. Yeah. Which is displacement. All these communities they would provide with high-rise apartments as
They move
compensation.
into these condos, right? These high-rises.
Yeah, as
instead of their-
compensation for them to being displaced, which most of the time they don't agree to it, and they would, it results in, squatter homes and things like that. But some of them are, as I mentioned, they're quite resilient, and they would find other places to stay and build a new community together and still live in their houses.
Continue their way of
tradition,
life, right?
yeah.
So there's some small victories, right, here and there. Well, we actually have only 8 minutes left. So it runs out so quickly. So I think we have maybe time for, 1 or 2 questions. I had some more questions for these 2 ladies, but we don't have enough time. So if you have questions, please shoot them right away towards us. Yes, please. Yeah, she was just in the
But she's also a journalist.
noontime
I'm
session.
scared.
So, okay,
Hello.
yes, go ahead.
Hi. My question would be, I mean, maybe specifically to Thailand as well, and maybe PI can address it. I mean, it seems very counterintuitive for us to be, development driven. Have all these goals right now. Try to, boost the economy, GDP. I know that's very important, but where is the tipping point, you think? I mean, because in the Western world, they seem to have learned, what these developments and all of these rapid growth, has led to, and then at one point they stop and they slow down and then they, rethink about about nature. But can we just, see what has been done and we just adopt it without having to go through all of these things ourselves? What do you think?
We'll have to learn through direct experience. I don't think we've ever learned it. The tipping point, physically, in terms of ecologically, we've already passed one of the tipping point, but there's going to be more and more thresholds to come. And but socially, I think what we call the critical mass that we need for new perspective, the mindset that we need, new consciousness that need to change. I talked to one German ecologist, and he said 30%. So, of population, 30% of population who have changing the paradigm shift, who shift their paradigm towards more like
Germany or
conservation.
on the whole, just Germany.
He talked about his own experience. It would
okay.
be, well, he said 20 to 30%. maybe, yeah, that have some awareness. I don't mean, I think he doesn't mean that you have to be like super green, like with the hardcore green, like we are. But
At least be
yeah.
conscious, right,
Yeah.
of the consequences of your
Yeah.
actions.
But the important thing is, one thing I just have to say that, we always get mocked, that said, oh, so you're going to go and back, you want us to go and back live in the cave? No, it's not about going back to the caves, but it's about doing accounting properly. You do not externalize your, the problems, basic green accounting, green finance, and the kind of sensible development that we can still have all our, technology that help us, but we just need to be more intelligent with our design, and decide that, the really trendy design now, the biomimicked design that you mimic the genius of nature, so without compromising and creating problems for other peoples to bear, but because the changes is difficult to happen, because do you think the people who hold the resources in Thailand is the 0.1% on the top.
Yeah, just the
They're not
top.
going to change by themselves. So other people have to, So that's why we have to be active. That we have to be aware of the whole social structure and how resources are used. And I know that majority had voted for one party with a good, interesting environmental policy,
But they were kept out of
yeah, but
the
internalities.
government.
But don't give up. Try again.
Yeah, I guess
but
so.
this next time,
Right.
landslide.
What about in Malaysia, or
Yeah.
your version of a tipping point, or what can an individual do from your experience? She's also an architect, so you have various
I
experience.
was practicing as an architect before. Well, wow, that's a really tough question.
Or maybe
for
it's
me.
too late, do you think? We're past the tipping point already. It's a boiling climate, planet
I
right
guess
now.
so. But I mean, like I said before, I really seeing different communities coming together to just, going against all this and just repair, repair what's broken, and it's inspiring to see, and it's always a good. The time is now to learn from them and to work together. Yeah, I feel like, of course, we've already passed the tipping point, and there are many more tipping points coming. Yeah, and I think that's
So maybe start with your backyard, like our friend here, Malina. She's an architect, but she now has a durian and mangosteen orchard, right? That's like taking action within your own backyard. Yes, very good too, for mango and durian. So I think on a grand scale, it sounds very bleak, right? All the powers that be and people with money and power may not seem to care so much. Although I'm seeing a little bit of change in some of the big corporations, but then we always a little bit suspicious of these CSR programs or greenwashing. So I think the individuals like us have to keep an eye on these people, right? And then also do what we can on a personal scale. We have 2 more minutes. Looks like we have to end, right? Yes, 2 more minutes. Okay, so I think that's a wrap, right, for this session. So, well, sorry for the very short time, but you can also come up and speak to these authors later on, and then check out their books at the stall. And also, PI has workshops based on this book, like nature connection workshops, which is sometime next year in Chiang Mai. You can follow her Facebook or page, for updates. Okay, so we have to move out for the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your views on preserving nature. The speakers will now be heading to the Nelson Hayes Library courtyard if you would like your book signed. If you are not attending the next session, please kindly vacate the room.